Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another video on Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 3. Today, we are finishing the Phi Rift clears, as we had a look at the first half of the rifts in our video on Friday. If you missed that, go back and check it out. It's recently in the video history. But today, we will be doing all of the remaining rifts that we missed from that segment on Friday, which, as a reminder, is going to be all of the rifts on the right-hand side of the little X-cross bracket here. So that will encompass the fights where one unlocks Cyclops, make sure that you get the full clear rewards, and we'll go through what will be required for the remaining 5 rifts here and go into some deeper detail. So if you're excited for today's content, please feel free to leave a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more daily content. And without further ado, let's jump into the rifts of today's video. So the first rift, of course, is going to be the easiest of the ones we're looking at. This is the level 24 Survival Extermination Protocol rift. And this is going to be the rift where we encounter and unlock Cyclops. Well, we don't encounter him, but we unlock him by getting through this clear. This just involves the fight against the Sentinels out in front of the Xavier Mansion. It's basically the exact same scene that you see from the main story quest. There are 13 Sentinels that come in. You gotta drop them all and do so in a reasonable amount of time. Of course, our primary objective is getting through this rift and getting the full clear on it. The second criteria, which is actually a little bit tricky, is dealing 1.4 million damage or more with abilities. If you're having difficulties or struggles with this particular item, I would recommend putting either Daredevil, Morbius, or Captain America on your team. Reason being is Daredevil and Morbius can increase the damage that is dealt to your opponents while by decreasing their defense, while Captain America increases the damage output of your teams and thus increases the damage output that is being experienced by the different team members. Synergies do count towards that ability attack damage, so do keep that in mind. Thanos Infinite, as much fun as he is, he doesn't do super well with getting you to that damage cap threshold, which is a little bit unfortunate, especially due to the fact that he does not synergize with anyone else. The last thing you need to keep in mind is make sure that you get this done in 1 minute and 40 seconds or left, and that's all you need to know in order to get the 3-star clear. The second rift that we will look at is the level 45 Synergy Trial Android Assault, and this basically looks like the exact same fight from the story quest as well, where we confront Ultron and all of his sentries. This is the Mind Stone variant of Ultron, but then again, anytime you confront Ultron in this game, he is going to have that Mind Stone enhancement. The quirk with this fight is every source of damage output except your synergy attacks specifically is going to be reduced, so just be cautious as you run into this fight. Because of the greatly increased amount of synergy damage that we are dealing with all of our teammates except Thanos Infinite there again, we really should be able to get through this in that time constraint, which is the 1 minute and 30 seconds or less. Of course, getting through this clear is the other criteria, and the last thing that we'll need to do to make sure that we get the full clear is get through this with no teammates incapacitated. You see that I failed that on this particular iteration where Dr. Doom went down, but you can double back around and hit that again on a second pass, as you do not need to hit these 3 criteria in one singular run. As a matter of fact, there are some of them where you just can't. The third rift that we're looking at today is the level 60 Rush Slim Chance Gauntlet Run. And it's kind of an ironic name because this was by far the easiest of the different rifts for me. You see that my game is currently dying because of all the particle effects that are going on the screen. But the basic gist here is you've got to run through a couple of different bosses, a ton of grunts that get summoned in, and at some point Cyclops is going to show up and you'll need to make sure that you take him down as well. As you will need to defeat 50 enemies including Cyclops to meet the base criteria for this fight. But as I've said before, if you have a team member who can kind of graviton everyone into the center, the best examples of that being Thanos Infinite and Cable, you can really suck all of the opponents in to the point where you really don't have to worry about them too much. At this stage, Loki was kind of making me angry, so I just detonate my extreme attacks. That doesn't play into the overall gauntlet at all, but when you have them and they deal such meaningful damage, honestly, why wouldn't you use them? The 3-star clears that you're looking for here, apart from the overall clear condition of that 50 enemies needing to be defeated, including Cyclops, is making sure that we, of course, get through that rift with that minimum requirement. The second criteria is getting 90 enemies defeated or more, and as you can see, since we have 5 minutes on the timer, we are well on our way to do that. As a matter of fact, we'll probably even be up to that before the midway point, just based off of how well our team is just ripping through these opponents. And additionally, you will deal and receive increased damage as the fight marches on. But you'll just want to bear that in mind as you seek to take on any of these opponents. So you'll see that that counter of enemies that we're taking down does tend to grow, I wouldn't say exponentially, but it does grow incrementally based off of the damage increasing minute by minute in this gauntlet. The last criteria is making sure that you get through this without any teammates incapacitated. This should really be very simple, especially if you have watched a lot of my content. You'll see that I highly recommend running the Vitality Alliance Enhancement. If you have questions about Alliance Enhancements, I have a whole playlist based off of that on my channel that you can go check out. Specifically, the Vitality branch has a lot of good items for health retention and health replenishment in the middle of a fight, apart from what is automatically generated in per the game mechanics. And one of the biggest and best sources of healing up the members of your team is in form of allowing them to take back a percentage of health based off of the extreme attack damage that they deal. I run that constantly, and it really helps me make sure that I don't go too far under. You'll see that at this stage, we're just waiting for the timer to run out. We've got 160 enemies taken down and counting. I don't think Cyclops has popped up just yet. I think he comes in around 1.5 minutes to a minute left on that timer. So in all honesty, we are just going to be running the exact same pattern as we have been for the last couple of minutes as we just pound this out. Gravity surge people in, hit a couple of heavy attacks, maybe switch it up and get a synergy or two thrown in there. But there you see at the 1.5 minute mark, Cyclops pulls in. So it's not at an enemy defeated threshold, it's just based off of the time when he chooses to show up. So at this stage, I'm really just running over and detonating all of my extreme attacks over Cyclops to take him down as quickly as we can. We didn't manage to completely take him out, and I'm not too concerned about that at this point. He is a little bit stronger than some of the other boss characters that have come up during this fight, but we've got increased damage that we're dealing, so I'm not concerned at all in terms of being able to deal and dish out the attack damage there. So as the minutes wind down here, we're just making a mad dash to see how many opponents we can take down. Ideally, in my mind at this point, I was thinking, hey, let's see if we can get over 300 enemies defeated. And based off of how quickly things are moving, that's not going to be a trouble for us whatsoever. While I wait for the remainder of this timer to track down, here's just your reminder once more. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please take a second and do so. There's really no harm in it. I bring content to you every single day. It's not all Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 stuff, but I like to try and diversify what I'm providing to you. So if you're interested in seeing any of the other series that I have, please feel free to hit that subscribe button, as only a fraction of a percent of you do, and it would really help me out to make sure that I can keep doing this long term, if you did. So, timer's ticking down here. Thanks for letting me take a moment of your time, and let's move into the fourth section of this gauntlet and the characters that we're needing to, or the criteria that we're looking for in order to clear that out. This is going to be the level 74 Countdown Infinite Darkness Gauntlet. And this, or Rift, I should say. And this one is actually pretty straightforward. We've got to make sure that we take out 80 enemies over the course of this fight in order to get our clear condition. And you're going to want to be hunting down whatever enemies you can find periodically throughout this fight anyway, as each enemy you take down will replenish time back onto your timer. That becomes important because, one, it helps you clear the actual gauntlet we're running, or the rift that we're running, but also the last clear but also the last clear condition that we're looking for, apart from, you know, clearing out the rift itself, is getting a minute and 30 seconds or more to show on the timer at the end of the rift. But the heavier or harder the enemy you defeat, the more time will be replenished onto that. I'd recommend not jumping down into that gap, but if you do, it's not the end of the world. You do get teleported back up to the top here. Normally, I would just kind of zip through this as quickly as I can, but because I want to be absolutely sure that I'm not missing any time and not running the risk of not hitting that time there, I am taking the time to take down every single enemy that I can possibly find to hopefully not have to run this multiple times. It's not the end of the world if you do have to, but it certainly helps keep things a little bit more stable. This lower segment here, I think this is a little bit more intensive than what's in the main story quest. We've got to take on a total of 23 enemies and artifacts, where there's only the one artifact that spawns in at the very end. And as we do that, it will allow us to raise this platform up in order to interact with the portal that just spawned up on the top right. There are a couple of Hydra agents that spawn in here. Honestly, they're just more bodies to add to the pile and the counter as we're seeking to track down 80 of them. So lay into them while you can, because there's no harm in not doing so. And then you can hop right through that portal into the next section. Now, this area that we're coming into is a little bit confusing if you've never ran it before. I have been speedrunning this game, so I'm pretty familiar with the flow for it. And so if you've been confused, you get a little turned around here. This is the optimal path that we're looking for in terms of navigating this next puzzle or maze section here. Now, I am taking a couple of detours again just to make sure that I am taking out these opponents where I can. But right here at this fork in the road, all of this stuff is optional. You do not have to stick around and do any of it if you don't wish to. If you do, there are a couple of clear condition rewards that you can find, and a pretty big stockpile of them over there back behind us. But if you're not interested in any of that, or you yourself are trying to work out how to speedrun this game or get into that type of scene, you will want to kind of take the route, or the upper left corner, all the way up here, and you'll see this staircase or the jagged rocky outcropping in about the center of your screen. As soon as we have our opponents taken out here, we will be progressing through this section. Opponents or characters with teleports and web slings don't tend to do super well with those inclines, so if you have characters with flight abilities, that'll probably help you traverse that a little bit easier. In this section, you will have to take out the arcane artifacts in order to unlock the different rifts here. The first one is the flame artifact, which unlocks the rift covering up the portal down there in the background of the screen. I'm going to head that way as soon as I take out these opponents here, and this guy is safeguarding the portal. This portal will teleport you a little bit further back into the right, just above the section where we were just playing in. That will give you access to the electrical arcane artifact, and then down here on this little pillar, after you jump down from the top, you can go ahead and take on the ice arcane artifact in order to clear out that last rift that's blocking your path. And I'm taking another brief moment just to make sure that I'm hitting all of these opponents and taking them down. If you're concerned as to whether or not you're hitting the clear conditions, you can pause and look at the menu, and by hitting the Y button on your controller when you're in the pause menu, you'll see how you're doing on those clear conditions and whether or not you need to continue working with it. We've got all of the opponents in this section taken down, so at this stage we'll just progress into the next area. There are a couple of Hydra agents safeguarding this section of the stairwell. They're not always here, they're just here in this iteration of the rift and a couple of the other challenge variations. And then we will zip our way down this last patrol balcony into the final encampment area, which is where we're going to find ourselves in a face-off with Loki. And Loki does have the same fight structure that he does when you find him in the normal story quest, where you need to get him down into the second phase before you are going to be able to deal and upkeep damage onto him. But at this stage, we've got our extreme attacks online. Thanos Infinite has the benefit of instantly staggering them out, so you're not going to have any trouble of layering into him and taking him down. And at this stage, it's just a matter of making sure that you're hitting into him and directly targeting him with any of your extreme attacks in order to get the full clear on that. The last area, or the last rift that we're looking at today, is the level 90 Ultimate Alliance of Evil rift. And this basically comprises any and all of the villains that you would encounter in the main story quest, not necessarily in order. We start off with Ronan here, and for the most part it's just the boss characters, though periodically we do have a couple of grunts that spawn in, which is kind of nice because it allows us to replenish our health and our stamina here. After Ronan goes down, we have Maximus who spawns in, and that's where I mean that it's not necessarily the order of villains, or the villains that appear in the story quest in order, because Maximus is a very late game boss. He appears within the last third to quarter of the game. As you are working on taking him down, you'll see that Mysterio also comes in, and he tends to be a little bit annoying with some of the attacks he can throw out, but he's really kind of a glass cannon when you get down to the bare bones of it. So with those couple of heavy attacks there from Thanos Infinite, you see that we have both Mysterio and Maximus taken down. As we sit around and wait here in the Heart of Infinity stage, we'll have a couple of Ultron sentries come in, and if that's not foreshadowing, I don't know what is. Because as soon as you have these guys taken down, you will be encountered by Ultron himself. And as a reminder, anytime Ultron appears, he does have that Mind Stone enhancement active. But if you take him out quickly enough, you really won't have to worry about him at all, because he's not as menacing in this context as he is in some of the others. Now we have some of the Shadowland ninjas popping in. I guess it's the Hand and the Shadowlands characters, which includes their ringleader in this variant being the Kingpin. He is a very large nuisance as he hits very hard and has large attacks. You saw that I switched off onto Black Panther there in order to get a synergy attack in. Just missed the detonation in terms of hitting into Kingpin, but we ended up getting him down anyway. Then the members of the Black Order will appear. They don't appear in the same order that you defeat them in either, which can be a little bit of a nuisance. And Ebony Maw hit me with that terrible needle attack as he just kind of auto-honed into me. I wanted to hold on to my extreme attack a little bit, but I needed to heal, and that's why you see me go ahead and detonate it here. Cole Obsidian spawns in next. He is actually followed by Supergiant, and then closely followed by Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight as well. And I will take this time while we're working on taking down the remainder of the Black Order to make sure that we go over our clear condition rewards here. So first, we've got to make sure that we get through this rift, and as soon as you've got a feel for it, especially if you have a high enough level team, you're not going to have an issue at least getting through it. The second clear condition is you need to get through here with 2 or fewer teammate incapacitations, which again, as long as you are conscious of your health, have your vitality decently maxed out to the point where you can replenish it mid-fight should you need to, you're not going to have a whole lot of struggle or trouble here. We do get a little bit tag teamed by Corvus and Proxima here, but that's pretty similar to what we see in the Xavier Mansion or the Xavier Institute as well. So it's nothing you haven't seen before. The most annoying thing with Corvus Glaive is the fact that he hops up into the air and then comes down throwing his glaives that have different elemental effects down onto the field, and that can be a little bit annoying. It turns I misspoke a little bit earlier, as Supergiant's the last opponent that spawns in, but she's not nearly as annoying in my opinion as Corvus, especially where Corvus has a ability where he just zips up into the air and is absent from the battlefield for a whole 20 or 30 seconds. That honestly is a very irritating gameplay mechanic, especially when it comes to speedrunning the game, if that's something that you're into. As soon as we have Corvus down, which will be when he eventually returns to Earth, we will be able to focus more primarily and more directly on Supergiant, and that will get us into the last phase of the fight as soon as she goes down. The only other clear-cut condition that we need to talk about here is this fight is not on a timer, but you do need to complete it in 10 minutes or less in order to gain that last clear condition. And upon clearing this one, you actually do get a alternate costume for Captain Marvel, which is pretty cool. So I'm not really going to do any complaining about that there. This is the real reason why I wanted to hold on to my extreme attacks, because I wanted to get as much damage in on Thane and Thanos as they spawn in here at the very end, as well as make sure that my team is healthy to take on whatever's remaining after the fact. As it turns out, Thanos went down instantly, and now we're just left dealing with the last 40 to 45% of Thane's health, which, as long as you don't get caught up in his amber attacks, he's not that big of a deal. The amber is absolutely devastating if you happen to get hit into it, as it leaves you highly vulnerable, and you take a lot of damage while you're in that state, and you have to mash in order to get out of it. But that is going to do it for all of the Phi Rifts. I'm going to include the end card here after I went through and cleared everything out, just so you see that I did go through and make sure that I get the clear condition on all of these and get that full 30 reward to claim that Spider-Man alternate costume. But thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.